last thing that you really need to do when really trying to use data related to the catching of fish of a particular size in a place to draw meaningful conclusions is to consider what the optimal or at least favorable conditions are for fishing there, and how often that you have visited that place with those type of conditions in play. So comparing, for instance, this what I would call area of the North Badlands to a micro spot like this one over here behind the tide gauge related to this drain here is not really useful. It doesn't make a fair comparison just in terms of the scale. If we think of the west end of Cathead here, though, and compare it to the drain behind the tide gauge, the scale is somewhat similar. And we can see there are obviously a lot more productivity over time for me of really big trout in this area around West Cathead compared to this drain. But the last layer of complexity to this is the consideration of optimal conditions and how often those conditions are in play. Difference here is big because the west end of Cathead produces a lot of big fish in various types of conditions, but one of the best ones is when the water's cold, say down around 50 degrees, and you still have a north wind blowing. Such conditions would essentially render this mouth of this drain worthless. It would take the potential down to nearly zero. On the other hand, like the conditions in play when my customer caught a 10-pound trout here, it was 60-something degree water with a really high tide and a dead calm wind, which was causing the tide to want to rush out of this lake back here, and the tide was pouring through that cut. So that's a very limited, specialized kind of circumstance which elevates the potential for this place. So a really good angler has to know not only what the general potential for productivity is in a place, but the specific potential given the conditions in play. It's a lot of information to analyze to make decisions, but again, without data of this kind that's accurate, you really don't have a chance. There's not even a starting point.